Our world is basically run by all these invisible rules. I mean, from the way we act at social gatherings to the split-second judgments we make about a product on a shelf, there are these hidden codes and unspoken bits of information shaping our behavior every single day. So what are they, and how do they actually work? Okay, let's dive right in.
Come on, we've all been there, right? The party's kind of winding down, you're getting tired, and the idea of doing a full lap to say all your goodbyes, it just feels like this huge social marathon. So, what do? You just kind of slip out unnoticed. It might feel a little rude, but you've just taken part in a surprisingly common social ritual. And that whole sneaking out thing, well, it's actually part of a much bigger story. And it brings us to our first section, exploring the unwritten rulebook that we all seem to follow in social situations, a lot of the time without even realizing it. So, this act of leaving without a big farewell, it actually has a name. In English, it's called taking French leave, or a French exit. The term goes all the way back to 1751, a time when English and French cultures were, let's say, very aware of each other. But it's not just them. You'll also hear it called an Irish goodbye. And this is where it gets really fun. Check out the cultural switcheroo on this slide. In French, the exact same action is called filer à l'anglaise, which literally means to leave English style. It's just a perfect little example of how these unspoken rules aren't just about being polite, that these little reflections of our shared history, our old rivalries, and maybe even a bit of a friendly jab between nations. Okay, so we've got these hidden codes for what we do. But what about what we feel? The rulebook doesn't just stop at the door. It governs not just how you leave a room, but how you're supposed to act while you're in it. These hidden rules go way beyond our actions. They actually try to dictate our emotions, too. You've probably heard the phrase, keep a stiff upper lip, right? Well, that is a classic example. It's a cultural code, one that's usually tied to the British, that really values staying calm and unemotional, even when everything is going completely wrong. The idea is that your upper lip trembles when you're scared or upset, so keeping it stiff is a sign of incredible self-control. And if you want a truly mind-blowing example of this code in action, just listen to this quote from Captain Al Haynes. Back in 1989, his plane had a catastrophic engine failure, losing all its hydraulic systems. His announcement to the passengers, it began with these 5 words: "We have a small problem." Now that is the stiff upper lip in its most extreme and, frankly, awe-inspiring form. Wow. I mean, that level of emotional control it's just such a powerful code. But you know what's interesting? These hidden rules don't just shape what we do and how we feel. They even influence things we just assume are universal, things we think don't need a code at all. Which brings us right to our second section, the universal language myth. I think we all like to believe that, a smile is a smile and a frown is a frown, no matter where you are in the world. But is the way we read facial expressions really a universal language? Well, the research suggests maybe not so much. It turns out some research from the University of Glasgow found something absolutely fascinating. When they looked at how people decode facial expressions, they found that Western observers tend to scan the whole face, right? Taking in information from both the eyes and the mouth. But East Asian observers consistently focus their attention almost entirely on the eyes. And look, this isn't just some small academic difference. This visual code has real-world consequences. As you can see, because a lot of the key emotional information for expressions like fear and disgust shows up around the mouth, if you only focus on the eyes, you can get it wrong. Fear gets misread as surprise, and disgust can easily be mistaken for anger. It's a pretty powerful reminder that even something as basic as a facial expression gets read through a cultural filter. This whole idea of filters and hidden rules, it leads us perfectly into our next section, the shortcuts that our brains are using all the time to make sense of the world. So be honest. Have you ever picked up a product and immediately judged it based on that little made in label? Well, that's a cognitive shortcut, and it's known as the country of origin effect. It's this really powerful mental code that links products to the reputations and, the stereotypes of their home countries, and it shapes how we see everything from its quality to its value. And this code is so deep inside our heads, it's practically instinctual. When I say Germany, you think precision engineering, right? Like BMW. Switzerland brings to mind luxury craftsmanship, like a Rolex. Italy means high fashion, and Japan means tech innovation. And these aren't just clever marketing messages. They are powerful cultural associations our brains use to make super quick judgments, associations built up over decades of history and manufacturing reputations.
So, just how powerful is this little mental shortcut? Well, get this. A 2017 study found that this number, 75%, of consumers all over the world are more likely to trust a product if it comes from a country with a strong reputation. That's a massive 3/4 of all shoppers, all relying on this one hidden code to make their decisions.
So we've got social codes, perception codes, brain shortcuts. That's a lot of stuff. So, how do we tie this all together? Well, I think there's a great metaphor for this. Thinking of life as a kind of puzzle box.
I want you to picture one of those interlocking wooden puzzles. It looks totally impossible to take apart. Trying to use brute force won't get you anywhere. The only way to solve it is to patiently look at it, to understand its internal logic, and to discover that hidden mechanism, the secret code, that finally lets it unlock.
And that's the thing. This isn't just about wooden toys. This process applies to pretty much everything. If you want to navigate a tricky social situation, understand a different culture, or even see past your own biases, you have to do the same thing. You have to observe the system, find that hidden code, and only then can you unlock the solution.
Okay, so far we've talked about codes that affect, parties and shopping. But let's really push this idea to its absolute limit. What happens when the hidden information isn't just a puzzle, but a matter of life and death? This brings us to our final and definitely most intense section, betting on the unknown. The term Russian roulette first popped up in a short story way back in 1937. It describes this horrifying game where a player puts one bullet in a revolver, spins the cylinder, and pulls the trigger. It is the ultimate, most terrifying example of making a decision when the most critical piece of information is deliberately and completely hidden from you. And that's why it's become more than just some grim game. It's this powerful metaphor for any time we take a massive, foolhardy risk without knowing what's going to happen. And while most of the hidden codes in our daily lives aren't quite this deadly, they all operate on the exact same principle. We are constantly being forced to act without knowing the full picture. So when you think about it, from slipping out of a party, to reading someone's face, to judging a product on a shelf, our entire lives are constantly being guided by these hidden codes. They're the unspoken rules, the cultural filters, and the mental shortcuts that help us get through a really complex world. And once you start seeing them, you can't stop. Recognizing them is the first step to really understanding them. And that is the first step to seeing the world, and maybe even ourselves, just a little more clearly. So I'll leave you with this. What hidden code are you going to spot tomorrow?